Welcome to the Disruptance Podcast. The Disruptance Podcast is the show that disrupts the way entrepreneurs think to make them more profitable and impactful. Rethink tired and outdated business norms to welcome innovation and unlock your unlimited possibilities. Here are your hosts, Eric Forney and Greg Fowler.
All right, man, I'm super excited about this one. Another incredible episode of Disruptance. And this one in particular, Eric, I'm excited about. Among so many others, this edition is the true or false and why real estate edition, right? So I want to hear from Eric's perspective, right, directly into some of the true or false and misnomers that might be into real estate. I got 12 questions. And
okay, I'm not seeing any of these, so
no.
We may have to make a lot of edits later. We'll see.
No edits needed, my friend. And what I want to do, though, is encourage anybody who's tuning in with us to follow along, answer the questions too. So as Eric's going through, answer the true and false questions and ask yourself, why are you answering that way? Along with this man, see if you line up, whatever tallies up, that sort of thing. So Eric, let's start with the first question. Being in real estate is easy money. True or false?
True.
Why?
At the end of the day, when you strip it down to first principles, everyone lives somewhere. It's as easy to talk about as pizza. People love it equally as much. And the name of the game is just to be educated and honest and be an advocate and a consultant for the consumer. When you strip it down to why it's easy, it's because the job is being in the intercept of the exchange of money, which in this case happens to be the exchange of real estate. It's making it more complicated than that causes people to think it's difficult.
Oof. And that's such a strong statement into that. I find the formula, and we've had this conversation, and obviously there'll be several episodes of Disruptance kind of breaking this whole thing down, but the overcomplication of the simplistic, it happens in this business all the time. But I think the fundamentals, when someone says, it's easy money, the initial knee jerk to your point is yes, but there are fundamentals into putting in the consistency, right? If you're going to show up and do the work and be there time and time again, it's going to be perceived as easy. But if you don't, it's not. But that's with any occupation, right?
Nothing wrong with easy money, by the way. When I say that it's easy, I don't mean that it's nefarious or that it's not providing a high value or that someone's overpaid. What I purely mean are the words you said, which is easy, and that being involved in the transfer of real estate by advising, consulting, and educating the consumer, that part is easy. Because it happens tens of thousands of times across every city.
And to me, I love the pizza analogy. It makes me hungry. It's lunchtime, so going into that area, that's never a bad thing. So
question, say sex, but I don't think people talk openly about that as much today. So,
hey, that's all right.
Pizza.
Anything is on this show, my friend. There's nothing that holds bar onto that. So question 2, we've got the statement, real estate agents are able to make their own hours. True or false?
True. Most of them are unwilling to put in the work that would require them to make their own hours, and most of them that would want to define their own hours want to achieve it in a time horizon that's improbable. And so what I mean by that is you could absolutely provide for your family and achieve your personal goals by defining your own hours. It would mean that you would need to be niche specific around working with sellers and sellers who don't need to work outside of whatever your desired time frame is. So, for instance, I could go hard in the paint on going after the HUD contract. I could go talk to a bank and come up with their portfolio of foreclosed assets. I could work with hedge funds. There's a lot of ways that I could manufacture control of my time. They all boil down to I have to be specific, I have to be strategic, and I have to be skilled.
Mm.
Most are unwilling to put in the work that's required to be all three.
Wow. Love that into it. And again, that hourly sort of mentality is to really structure a day and a path and a life. This is really good. Question 3, coming down to it. Real estate is a glamorous job. True or false, Eric?
I'm going to
Is
say
it glamorous?
yes.
Is it? I mean,
Yeah, I'm going to say yes. And I only say yes because, I used to sell paint. And when I think about selling paint or selling real estate, um, when I would go to a bar at 25 years old, no chick said, "Oh my God, you sell paint. That's so hot." And as a result, compared to alternatives, it
oh.
at least is a much more glamorous job than most alternative options. Is it as glamorous as being an NBA player? Probably not. But it's somewhere in between selling paint and being an NBA star.
Oh, that's huge. I love that thought process. So many people that there's so many reality TV shows and we could name them all from HGTV to Netflix to Bravo, where there is a lot of glamorous nature. A lot of that is fake and fabricated for TV. It is what it is. But
Of course,
I think that it is an interesting kind of take on those things. And it's all perspective, as you mentioned,
it's
comparing to
perspective.
paint
That's right.
to that.
Yeah.
Where do you come from? What's your background? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of really interesting thoughts into that one note, for sure. So let's go into number 4, Eric. So
Okay.
every day is different as a real estate agent. True or false?
I think that answer is true. And I guess if I were to add clarity to it, I would say that every day has something different.
Hmm.
The fundamental structure of human life, for the most part, is that every day is the same, and that's a good thing. You actually want every day to be the same because you want to go to bed and then you want to wake up tomorrow, right? You want the fundamentals to be roughly the same on an ongoing basis and consistent. You want to eat, you want to have, sunshine, you want to have these, necessary provisions of Maslow. And so, for the most part, the fundamentals of real estate are the same daily. It's the fact that there's always something new that you likely haven't encountered in the specific situation or scenario that in the past that make it really good for people who don't love structure or who do really well with high adaptability, who hate to sit at a desk all day. It's the perfect job for people who want variation but also have some consistency. It's the
Love that.
Goldilocks of predictability.
I love that you're bringing that reference into it. I think that the spontaneity of life is always exciting. And the mundane nature into, day to day punching a clock and what a normal person would say to a career and a path would be. You stated the fundamentals of business and the consistency of life. I think that's there, but there's so many things that happen every single day. And I think it keeps it exciting. So that's almost a half and half kind of answer, I guess, true and false of that. So here's an interesting one. You can start making money immediately in real estate, overnight success, true or false?
The answer is true. However, most do not. But there's no reason that you cannot. It goes back to the previous equation of choosing to spend time being specific, adapting the right strategy, and applying skills. Most opt out of that model initially, and they end up floundering or they end up distracted and confused. I actually would argue maybe that most people's goals and dreams and their desire for controlling what the future looks like prevents them from making money quickly.
Wow.
Because what I find from new agents is they're still full of hope. And it is that hopeful optimism that actually prevents them from oftentimes being successful. And by that, what I mean is there's a lot of delusional optimism. Unless an agent gets into the business and has a plan for monetization, they oftentimes want to remain independent agents because they are hopefully optimistic they'll make a lot of money and do it on their own. That's their ideal case outcome. But in doing so, they oftentimes flounder with no results. Instead of saying, I want to have a great career, not a great year. So how do I insert myself into the fastest path to developing the skills, the strategy, and the specificity that's necessary for me to have a great career? I'll measure the effectiveness and the success of my life over a longer term horizon, not a short term. I don't need it to look exactly the way I want it to look day one. I'll be part of the best organization possible, surround myself with the best leaders, the best coaches, and make money, acquire skills, acquire a database, and then figure out what I do next. Wow. The mistake is designing it all up front on a short-term framework.
I think that a lot of that has to, as you mentioned, kind of the mindset and guilty by association of proximity, surrounding yourself with great leaders, mentors, coaches, trainers. Somebody who's been there, done that about the t-shirt. You have a very unique story, Eric, because, coming from your prior occupation into real estate and then just massively accelerating, to the monetary scale. So I find that there are outliers, such as yourself.
But Greg, I thought a lot about this though recently, because I'm on Zoom just preaching at people like Joel Osteen on a regular basis, and I want to make sure that I'm spreading the gospel from the New King James, and that I'm accurately depicting what history looked like for my own life. And as I thought more about this, what I realized was that one of the reasons that I was successful was because I had help. And by that, what I mean is I got help from the government.
Wow.
And as I look back and I look at some of the wins that showed up, or some of the propulsions or reasons why I was able to play real estate differently up front, is I actually got money from the U.S. government at every available opportunity.
Wow.
And if there was a grant available, if there was a program, if there was some sort of scholarship, if there was a fair house, if there was a initiative to try to stimulate growth inside of a certain location or demographic or profile, I went to try to get that free money. And I say that in a positive, in the sense that there are people who got cash for clunkers. I wasn't one of them, but no big deal, because that was an initiative the government had that said, hey, we will give you money for free. We don't even expect you to give it back to us. If you trade in your clunker and go buy something new, we'll give you a head start. I took the $8,500 Obama bucks to buy a house that I didn't have to pay back. I took the next house I bought was zero down, no PMI, because there was a local bank here who had an initiative to try to jumpstart economy for people who made below the median income. So I went and bought real estate and tried to find as many opportunities as possible to get my hands on any advantage I could possibly gain in order to become more successful faster. And the way I look at it is I paid taxes. It would be foolish for me not to expect a return on my taxes that I gave to the government, right? Because they're not, I don't know what they're like where you are there in Boston, Greg, but potholes and, preventing them is not their specialty here. And so I figure if I'm paying taxes for potholes, then I'm not getting a high ROI. I might as well figure out a way to get a higher ROI on the money that I'm investing with the government, because they've put it out there to optimize. And so every opportunity possible, find a way to benefit the business, period. It's available today. Why not?
I think that's a very, in-depth perspective and unique, kind of reflection, Eric. And that's what's so great about having these conversations with you is I know you're going to go deep and you're going to tell like it is that way. I think that the pothole situation on a national basis is troublesome. That's the easiest way to describe that. I don't think anybody has it.
The wild thing about it is, Greg, and we may have already talked about it, but I think about this is, everybody looks at trying to minimize their expenses, and yet they neglect to realize that the largest investment they make over the course of their life is actually an investment into the American government. And no one holds that investment accountable to provide a positive return. And yet only the wealthy oftentimes are the ones who expect a high ROI on the money they invest with the federal government. And so my job is, where I had to think differently about this, was the government's actually giving me a playbook of how they want me to operate my day-to-day business so that they win and I win. So when you look at like solar credits, for instance, solar power tax credits, the government said, hey, we want to advance the solar energy initiatives of this country so much, we'll give you money to go invest your money into solar power. That's the government saying, we want as many people as possible to do this behavior. We'll give you the money you gave us back in order to go do it. As entrepreneurs, if we say no to recapturing the money we've already paid to the government based on revenue in order to go stimulate the economy, it's incredibly foolish. It's just a subtle way of rethinking about how you allocate capital.
To me, I think that's an excellent future episode of Disrupt, talking about taxes. I mean, it's one of those things you don't talk about, right? But I think on this show, it should be spoken on from an entrepreneurial basis, obviously for real estate and everything in between, to run a business and operation, not taking advantage, but really understanding the rules of the game. You can't play the game without knowing the rules and expectations. And to really master it, I use chess as an example. I mean, you have to know the moves and you have to know the strategies behind it to be the most effective chess player. And I think that's the same with the game board of life.
Well, I mean, just look. I mean, the U.S. economy says, the government has basically said that we think that AI is such a future-based, urgent and critical matter that we're going to cut off sales of GPU chips to China, but we'll pay R&D tax credits to American companies to manufacture them and for businesses to go implement those AI solutions into their business. But we won't allow you to sell them to everywhere else around the country or around the globe because the U.S. believes that they're in an intelligence race with China and other countries. And so they're literally telling entrepreneurs, we will pay you to help us advance this arms race of AI. And a lot of people choose to either be unaware or be obstinate about not taking advantage of that.
It's a sad reality for sure. I mean, the burying the head in the sand sort of scenario is never going to get you anywhere. And I think the knowledge is power. It's more so the applied knowledge that is the power. And I think that's huge notes to take into there. Back to the true or false and why real estate edition. Here we are in, question 6, Eric. And this one in particular, interesting thought process here. You need to be extroverted to be successful in real estate. True or false?
Based on all of the research this is secondhand from what, the data that Keller Williams and Gary Keller have pulled together, and their answer is it's false. And the response that I got from Gary when asking a similar question recently was agents who are extroverted and have a large social network who knows them and trusts them. The key word, though, is trust. There are a lot of extroverted people who have very low trust within their circle of people because they are too extroverted at times. And so extroverted with a network that has a lot of people in it with a high degree of trust will work well. However, those that are most aggressive and driven are typically the most successful over the entire large demographic of licensed realtors. When we look at personality data as a company, those with the highest assertiveness typically have the highest results.
And this isn't a part of the questioning here, but this just kind of sparked a thought into my mind. I'd love to get your perspective on it. When we're talking about transactional agents versus relational agents, right? Like what's your take on that, Eric? I mean, to be leaning towards more transaction based, getting the deals done on a high volume and click, or does it end up being relational? Where do you see positives, negatives?
So in season 1, we did a controversial episode. I still get shit for it, but it was an episode titled "Relationships Don't Matter." And people
Oh,
choose to like read the headline and then not listen to the episode itself for some
of
reason.
course.
However, I believe that over enough research and enough results that what you find is that the salespeople who are hyper relationship based
Mm.
actually underperform salespeople who are who meet this profile of like consultant challenger.
Mm.
And the challenging consultant is actually over large numbers more effective um, than the relationship specific salesperson.
Mm.
And that's because at times you need to actually be the advisor, not the friend.
Mm. I love that perspective because a lot of professionals are going to lean towards the other way. So I see how that is controversial in nature to most real estate perspective opinions. But that's
Well,
why we're here, Eric. We're not telling me what you want to hear.
you
It's
know,
just
it blows my mind too. Just absolutely melts my skull when I think about like when I talk about it. Like people go, "Well, you're saying relationships don't matter," and I'm like, I didn't say that. That's a straw man argument if I've ever heard one. I mean,
there you go.
what I said was that when given a choice of telling the truth or
Mhm.
telling someone what they want to hear, telling them the truth is more effective
Mm.
when delivered effectively.
Right.
And so relationships are a vague, ambiguous term because everyone has their own very definition or degree of like of what a relationship is.
Hmm.
What we should think most about is proximity.
Oof. Yeah.
Everyone has a relationship with Tom Shane, and no one knows what Tom Shane looks like, if he's even a real person, where he is. But
Uh,
we all have a relationship with the Shane Co. because of proximity and repetition.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I love that. It's interesting to note, and whether Tom Shane is a voice actor or he's the real genuine article, it's hard to
Right?
say. But it's one of those saturation proximity notes that I think are very, very important. And I love that as a topic. I think that that's really interesting to note into this, Eric. So let's go to this one here. Real estate agents are always trying to make a sale. True or false?
False. The answer should be false. Whether there are agents who are always trying to make a sale, I have no doubt there are people who are always trying to make a sale. Sometimes the very best thing you can do is tell someone not to sell at all.
Mm.
The best professionals provide the best advice for the consumer's outcome or desired outcome, regardless of what's in it for the professional. And
So good.
some of the best appointments I've been on are the ones where I tell someone not to do something that would benefit me. Those
Mm.
are arguably the most rewarding.
Wow. Yeah, love that answer. And again, it's just that perspective that you have, Eric. It's invaluable to nature. And again, hopefully everybody who's listening right now is tallying up their true or false answers along with Eric here. So number
Mine
8.
are all right, Greg, by the way. I've gotten 100% so far.
I was gonna say you got it perfect so far, Eric, and you and I have been on the same page the whole time. I'm trying to see if there's any kind of discrepancy. If there was, then I
Okay.
would rebut, but there isn't. So I love where this is going. So here's the next one: real estate agents are, and we were talking about this. So before I read this one off, you had mentioned AI, so I think this is kind of a rebut to that next part. So real estate agents are obsolete in today's digital world. True or false?
False. Now, what is obsolete today is the real estate cartel. And what I mean by that is that for the longest time, real estate agents ran a cartel of information and access.
Mm.
And digitization democratized information and access to as much data and knowledge and information about real estate that really is available. You as a consumer, the consumer can know more about a property than a real estate agent, and oftentimes they do. Therefore, real estate agents have to move up the ladder of value delivery. And instead of providing value by providing information and knowledge, They have to instead triangulate all of the knowledge, data, and information, distill it into a strategic direction and the actions to take as a result. The agent should be moving from what was once cartel and instead move to concierge and then move to community building from there.
I think that that's a very unique perspective into that nature as you're breaking it down. You actually answered a couple thoughts here too, Eric. So again, this is why I love that this is completely candid. You do not know what I'm going to ask you here. So this is really, really good. I'm just shifting around. This next question, this one could be controversial to anybody who's tuning into this, but hey, it's here. So I'm going to ask it. Eric's going to answer it to the best of his ability, true or false. So when it comes down to it, real estate agents get paid too much for what they do, true or false? Ooh, ponder. Oh, you're thinking about this one, Eric. This isn't an immediate answer.
Yeah. I got to pick one or the other, don't I?
You do, but they're the why can explain.
It. So I'm going to say false. And
Okay.
I say false because when you look at the averages and the median results of the industry, typically the real estate agent is below average in annual income.
Got it.
Most markets, the average real estate agent significantly underperforms the median household income of their city. In fact, I just so happened to have looked at this data a couple of weeks ago. Oakland, the median annual income in order to achieve the standard of living for Oakland, California requires $90,000. It's lower in Cleveland, Ohio, as you might expect. And the average real estate agent makes somewhere, depending on the year, between $42,000 and $50,000.
Got it.
So it's called mid to low 40s is typically the annualized income of the average agent. When you understand that in Oakland, they would need to make 2x that, then they would underperform. They would slightly be above average in Cleveland based on the standard of living there. So I would say that most agents, the answer is false. They're not overpaid. Real estate is an interesting business where you have the ability to have outsized exponential returns if you are one of the top tier, most successful people in the market. You are able to have multiplying returns compared to the rest of the typical real estate agents.
Love it. And again, going into that, it's such a fundamental thought process into it. The way that you broke that down, I think, is beautiful. And the consumer just doesn't understand that. So I think that I always look at that question as okay, who are you asking that question to, right? Yeah. Is it a consumer? Is it a real estate professional? And I think you're going to get varying answers depending on who you ask.
Correct.
And I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that the consumer really doesn't understand how much detail, time, and effort and moving pieces and parts are done to get a property to closing, right? To actually make it happen from a buy side, sales side. And then some people will say, well, gosh, from that perspective, the listing agent threw up a sign, they touched their network and they got paid 30 grand. I think ultimately that consumer doesn't quite understand how many years they took to build up a database and a brand and a name and to be able to do those things in the speed that they do it. And it kind of comes and begs the question back to it. I know you and I have had this conversation, Eric, which is interesting, but it's like going to a dentist and them saying, hey, Eric, so, you got really bad pain in that tooth. It's going to cost you $5 grand and it's probably going to take me 15 minutes to do it.
Yep.
And then you're going to look at it and say, I'm going to pay you $5 grand for 15 minutes. And then my rebuttal to you as a dentist would be, would you rather it take 3 hours, 4 hours? Would you justify spending $5 grand across, 3 or 4 hours versus 15 minutes? It's those sorts of things are just such a silly way to look at it. However, people do. And I love your response into that. True or false sort of mentality. That was it. Those are my questions, Eric, for the true, false, and why. But where's your head at? Where do you want to go?
One time I recently triggered someone when I said that that teachers were not underpaid. You want to fire up some suburban housewives. Tell them that that teachers are not underpaid.
There we go. There we go.
That'll do it. And so the reason why I say that, though, is because similar to real estate agents, on the average, teachers make a similar salary or similar income to what a real estate agent does. And the rebuttal to that is always, well, OMG, they're like shepherding the future of America, right? We have kids going to kindergarten in a couple of weeks here, or soon, Greg, and so we want the most competent teachers on the planet. But what my rebuttal to that is that teachers also have a capitalist economy, the same way that real estate agents, the same way that dentists and all other professions do. You can be Betty, the middle school gym teacher, or you could be Khan Academy. They have a very drastic degree of different income based on the way that the marketplace has determined what they're willing to pay in exchange for the value and the medium that they deliver that value. And so Khan Academy has a multi tens of millions of dollar valuation doing education on YouTube and on, webinars and on training events that same teacher at your elementary school could go and replicate, and the market will determine what they're willing to pay for it.
Wow.
And if the market determines they're willing to pay exponentially more than what the public education system is, then great. Welcome to America. That's how it works. All of us have that same opportunity to go capitalize on value exchange. We get paid based on the perception of value by the marketplace itself.
Well said, Eric. I love that. And again, every time we dive deep into these questions and thought process, it's just so great. I know that everybody out there, who's tuning into this episode of Disruptance, hopefully you followed along, you got the true and false. Hopefully you were in line with Eric. If not, that's okay. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. That's
Don't give them excuses, Greg. They were wrong.
Fair enough. You heard it from him.
Who did we trigger today? We got teachers. We got relationship salespeople.
Yeah. I think we were talking about fake TV. Realtors.
That's right. That's right. Gosh. Okay.
We'll
have to. We'll get more next time.
I love it. Hey, Eric, I appreciate you, man. Everybody out there, appreciate you. Catch you on the next one. Take care.